Hey there riders, Moto Journo Kris here today, and I have the KTM 390 Adventure. This is my sister's bike, and we've fitted the lowering kit from KTM to this particular machine. Now, I guess the point to make about the 390 Adventure is that the 855mm seat height is on the taller side for a beginner bike. And obviously, when we're talking adventure bikes, a taller seat height and longer suspension travel and greater ground clearance is important, because if you're on the rough stuff, you need that. However, I think these are kind of a soft off-roader, realistically speaking, and many people who buy them probably aren't doing really serious off-roading, where a dual sport is probably going to perform significantly better. However, if you do want that kind of soft off-roader and you want the KTM 390 Adventure, for a lot of shorter riders, that seat height is going to be a little bit of a constraining factor. Now, 855mm is well above the average for a regular beginner bike. Most really try and keep that seat height around the 800mm mark. And as I said, you know, the reach to the ground from that seat, even for me as someone who could get both feet just down in regular boots, it was still a, you know, kind of a point that I did notice, particularly jumping from other bikes. So we ordered in the KTM lowering kit for the 390 Adventure. We did have to wait a little bit of time for it, and I'd probably recommend, because there seems to be a shortage of these particular accessories at the moment, order in advance, wait for them to come in, and keep in mind if you're getting the shop to fit them, that you're gonna have to pay a little bit extra for that as well. I think the fitment was about the same cost as the actual kit itself, which was about the $500 mark. So that adds about 10% to the cost of the 390 Adventure, which it's on the more premium end of things, I would say, to start off with, and that adds a little bit extra as well on top. And the reason for the kind of more pricey installation is that while the replacement shock is a fairly easy thing, it just gets bolted in, and the side stand is again a very easy thing, the kit actually includes spacers for the forks, which means that the whole bike is lowered. It's not just bringing the rear down, which is obviously going to kind of change the geometry of the machine and change the handling. They're actually dropping the whole machine, that 25mm, with the kit. Now, if you're very mechanically minded, you can probably install that lowering kit in the forks, at least, the spacers in the forks yourself. However, I'd say that since most people are probably new riders and may not really be able to do that, you will need to factor in the cost of getting this installed. And I'd talk to your KTM dealer. We did it at the first service, which made it nice and easy. It did mean my sister had to do all of her early riding on the bike at the taller height. However, once we got the kit put on, she really did notice a significant difference. And I will say, the lower seat height is very, very welcome, but actually from a road bike perspective, I would say it actually improves the handling of the bike and the feel of the bike considerably as well, just because of that lower center of gravity and just the way the bike is just brought down a little bit, and makes it a little, I guess, a little bit of a sharper handler really at the end of the day. Okay, so here I am with the 390 Adventure. I'm gonna jump on the bike and give you a little bit of an idea of the seat height, and then I'll give you a very, very quick kind of impression about how it's changed the handling of the bike. So jumping on board, one thing I will say about the 390 Adventure is that the seat is a little bit wider than on the sportier machines that you'll see, even like the 390 Duke and bikes like that. And as a result of that, even with this seat height now brought down to 830mm, I'm just getting both feet down flat in my regular riding boots. I didn't wear my adventure boots today because they do give me quite a bit more reach, and I felt like it would be better for people looking at this to get an idea. Now, I'm 180 centimeters, I'm a 32-inch inseam. The 32-inch inseam is the figure you're looking for to figure out the reach to the ground, and 32-inch inseam is probably a little bit above average. 30 is probably more the norm, 30, 31, especially if you're a shorter rider, generally speaking. But jumping on the bike, I can get one foot down flat easily. There's a lot of room to move actually around on that seat, so that if you're still not getting both feet down flat, you'll be able to move across on the bike a little bit and get one foot down very, very securely, even as a shorter rider, which is what it's all about in realistic terms, because that's what gives you a little bit more confidence, particularly in the early stages. As you can see here, easy reach to the bars. Obviously, the whole bike is lowered, so the actual seat to peg to bar ratio is not changing with this kit at all. However, what is changing is the bike is just that little bit lower to the ground, and certainly picking up the bike from MotoHUB after they've installed this kit, I really did notice quite a significant difference. I guess the other point to make, as I mentioned before, is that if you're thinking about this as quite a hardcore off-roader, for whatever reason, I wouldn't have said it's naturally really inclined to that. I'd say more soft off-roader. If you're thinking about that, this mod is not going to be for you. I would just struggle with basically the bike the way it is out of the box, with a little bit more ground clearance, a little bit more suspension travel. As far as the ride itself, the ride over like sharp speed bumps at very low speeds with the forks changed and the different shock in it, it's a little bit harsher. However, once the speeds rise and you're in more normal conditions, I felt like the front end, fairly supple, rear, maybe a tiny bit harsher than it was with the stock shock in. However, I didn't feel like there was a huge loss in comfort riding the bike, and I did a little bit of off-road, a little bit of, like kind of a fire trail with some quite bumpy conditions, and the bike handled that, no issues whatsoever. I was standing up on the bike, and that always helps. So that no doubt helped the suspension, but I didn't feel like there was a huge trade-off in that light off-road handling when it came to getting this kit installed. The actual handling of the bike, I would say, from a road perspective, is much improved, being that little bit lower. It probably shouldn't make that much of a difference. I don't know if it's the placebo effect happening there. However, I did feel like it really did transform the bike and bring it a little bit closer to, like the 390 Adventure and the Svartpilen and bikes like that, which are just a little bit nippier in the handling department. So for me, that was a win, and I think that was an added bonus that I probably didn't expect from this mod. Now, obviously, one of the questions that we do need to ask is how much ground clearance we're left with, because one criticism of the 390 Adventure is that it doesn't have that much ground clearance or suspension travel to start with, which again, soft off-roader. But let's see how it looks. This is a very rough measurement, obviously. So I got 220 on this side. I'm going to go the other side because the bike is leant over. $160 over the other side. And I'd say we're probably averaging it out, probably around that 180 mil to 190 mil kind of ground clearance. And this is, of course, with me on the bike as well, which does have a little bit of an impact in dropping the bike down, because obviously there's a little bit of sag involved. As far as the seat height, again, it's one of those things which really, we'll see if I can crush myself under the bike as a bit of a bonus to this video. Still looking like it's around the 840 mil mark with this very, very rough measurement. However, we'll try and figure that out. Also with me on the bike, is it going to make much of a difference? And is this very rough eyeballing really an accurate kind of point? Probably not. Yeah, it may be about the 830 mark. Okay, so overall thoughts on the 390 Adventure lowering kit. The bike is on the premium end of things. The lowering kit, I think here in Australia, was $500 or $550. I believe the installation was similar to that. If you're looking for value for money, this may not be the choice of lowering that you go for. Maybe you can go to a local suspension shop and get the specialists there to lower it somehow for you. That is a common thing that some people do. However, if you want the KTM setup and you've got $1,000 Australian or so to spend on the bike and you've got the time to wait for the kit to arrive, this may well be a great idea for you. Whether perhaps looking at a different bike like the Svartpilen would be a great option as well is something that I'll explore in a future video, because obviously the Spark Villain is cheaper. It's not quite as adventure orientated, it's more of a scrambler, but I'm actually interested to compare that bike to the 390 Adventure and see whether they maybe cover a similar kind of job, but the Spark Villain being a cheaper and lower seated option, I think a little bit, than the 390 Adventure out of the box. Anyway, if you've got any questions at all, let me know down below in the comments. As always, I'll do my best to answer them. Thanks for watching. It's getting a bit sunny here, so I'm gonna head inside. But as always, stay safe out there.